Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberal Party has won the federal election and is set to form Canada's next government. But it is not yet clear if they would hold a majority in the parliament. Now, the Liberal Party has clinched new term in power after Prime Minister Carney convincing voters that his experience managing economic crises has prepared him to confront US President Donald Trump. Results are still pending for Canada's 343 members of parliament, with 172 seats needed for a majority. The Liberals won a majority in 2015 but have governed without a majority since 2019. Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives were eyeing an election landslide earlier this year, but then trailed the Liberals in the days ahead of the voting. US President Donald Trump's tariffs and threats of annexing Canada stood as the central issue in the elections. Trump inserted himself into the race early in the day with a social media post saying Canada would face zero tariffs if it becomes the cherished 51st state. Poilievre hit back firmly and said President Trump stay out of our election, and also weighed in saying that this is Canada and we decide what happens here. Remember, Carney replaced Justin Trudeau, who was the focus of the opposition attacks about inflation, high immigration levels and a housing crisis. The 60-year-old ex-central banker had no prior political experience before running to become Liberal leader earlier this year. He has billed himself as someone who knows how to negotiate and to manage a crisis. Trump's involvement has not only infuriated many Canadians, but it's also put Poilievre and the Conservative Party on the back foot. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined live by Dave Gordon from Toronto. He's a journalist and a communications strategist. Thank you so much for joining us on WION World as One. Mark Carney's Liberal Party has won the federal election, is set to form Canada's next government. Not yet clear whether they will hold a majority in the parliament. What are things looking like at the moment for you?
Well, the votes aren't completely tallied. Our viewers should know that the elected seats right now are the Liberals at 108, the Conservatives at 101, and the Bloc Québécois Separatist Party at 17, and the New Democratic Party at 1. But if we go to elected and leading, the Liberals have 160 and the Conservatives have 148. The 172 is required for a majority. But we still don't know because all the votes haven't been counted yet, and it may very well be another hour before we get accurate results. But what it is trending to be is a Liberal minority government. By how much? It looks like a squeaker, just maybe a dozen seats. So then the next step would be which party is going to build a coalition with perhaps the separatists or even the socialists.
Right, absolutely. What's also interesting here is how much of a role Donald Trump has had to play in these elections. We know the housing crisis, immigration, these were some of the big issues. And then there were threats that were coming from US President Donald Trump, one mocking Canada, calling it the 51st US state. As I mentioned earlier, Carney has sort of billed himself as someone who knows how to manage crises. How do you see this playing out?
Well, there's no question that Donald Trump had played something of a role, but how much of a role? Obviously, that is very ambiguous. But his bluster about the 51st state and fighting with tariffs. The interesting part about this was that Donald Trump actually said that he preferred Mark Carney as a prime minister, and pundits parse this excessively. They thought that it was because Mark Carney might have been more compliant to Donald Trump. Why else would Donald Trump say that if he didn't think that he could push around Mark Carney? But it's true that there is an affordability crisis in Canada. There is a housing crisis in Canada. Both candidates were making promises to build more houses, to give the ordinary Canadians tax breaks, to give businesses tax breaks, to incentivize more jobs, to fight tariffs with tariffs. It's right now going to be interesting to see what Mark Carney does. They both have their own plan, but it might seem like for a lot of people, Mark Carney is Trudeau 2.0. But we'll see what his plan is and whether he actually can tackle these very difficult issues, these very difficult questions.
Right, and also I just want to understand the factors that could have perhaps led to the Conservative Party being on the back foot here.
Yeah, just a number of months ago when Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister, if the polls said that he was at such an all-time low, that Pierre Poilievre was going to have a very strong majority, and now Pierre Poilievre was on the back foot because I think he was lumped with Donald Trump. A lot of people had this idea that he was kind of like a Trump light, a Canadian Donald Trump. You can have your opinion on whether that's true or not. He said that he was not a Trump acolyte of any sort, but it stuck, and we Canadians have seemed to think that he has this sense about him that he was going to be push a far-right agenda. He'll say otherwise, but a lot of Canadians tended to think so.
All right. Well, Ms. Dave Gordon, thank you so much for joining us on
You're
WION
welcome.
The World is One with your insights on this. Thank you so much.